Hey everybody, this has been a long time coming and has been something that I've had to work up to, but I think it's needed and it's the right thing to do to let our fans and supporters know how things have been going with our company over the last 4 years. In 2014, we successfully kickstarted an open-world surrealist horror game called Grave. We earned over $37,000 on the campaign, and were lucky enough to have the game featured in a huge number of popular outlets, including PC Gamer, Destructoid, Rock Paper Shotgun, Polygon, GameSpot, Eurogamer, and a host of others.
It looks awfully nice!
Our titles were also played by a huge number of prominent YouTubers, including PewDiePie, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, Two Best Friends, and more. Our games were featured at Microsoft's press conference at E3, and we were confirmed for release on both Xbox One and PlayStation 4. This all seems great except for one thing. It's now 2018, and the game's not done yet. Not only that, but we still have a ways to go to finish the game. At the moment, it looks like we'll be in a good position to release the title in 2019, and there's a lot of content in the game that we're really proud of. Still, a valid question can and frequently does get asked. How do you guys fall 3 years behind the projected completion date, and why should we believe that this game is ever coming out? These videos are a bit of an extension to an article I wrote on Gama Sutra in 2015, where I expressed a lot of what it's been like to run a company since the start of the Kickstarter. At the time, we had only been in operation for about 2 years, and it was a particularly low point for us. Some things have improved since then, and some things have taken a lot longer than we expected, but I felt like we were due for an update. I also think we owe an explanation to not just the generous supporters who backed us on Kickstarter, but also all the people who have followed us on Twitter, Facebook, and in the news, who might want to ask us, hey, what's up? Where's the game? There's another reason for doing this though, and it's a bit more of a practical one. When I started our plans for doing a Kickstarter in the fall of 2013, I didn't really know what to expect, and I didn't find a lot of resources out there that could help me manage some of the larger considerations for going the crowdfunding route. I saw a lot of general tips and suggestions, but there weren't a lot of people who would be blunt about their experience and the challenges that came from it. This led me to have an unrealistic expectation of what running a Kickstarter would be like, and I really wasn't prepared for what happened afterward. I think there's a combination of people being worried about revealing their secrets, not wanting to show how the sausage was made, or genuinely just not wanting to be judged negatively for their mistakes or missteps. This is really understandable, but in my personal experience, people tend to privately admit they have a lot more fears, struggles, and insecurities than they ever would publicly. I think this accidentally creates the perception that everyone but you is doing well and that nobody experiences challenges of their own. You only know what your experience has been, and everyone else's experiences end up being kind of a black box. I prefer to be transparent about our experiences, even though I often stumble on communication. I get the impression that our experiences aren't entirely unique and might actually be beneficial for other people to hear, be they aspiring project creators, press, or audience members. I've avoided doing this for a while because I worried that it would be perceived negatively, that I didn't want to seem like we were making excuses. I know that we got money from people who believed in our concept and supported us, and I don't want to seem whiny or entitled. That being said, I know that the actions we've taken over the last 4 years have been earnest efforts to deliver a product that we really care about. And because of that, I think it's important to share what the experience has been like. We're not trying to pull a fast one or cancel the game, and our struggles have been real and contextual. We've made mistakes, we've planned incorrectly, and we've had to shift attention for periods of time to resolve financial difficulties. But we're honest and hardworking people who care about delivering something worthwhile to our fans. If you watch these videos and don't like what I have to say, that's fine. But it's a genuine representation of what our experience has been, and that's the best I can do. Hopefully you can come away from these videos with a better appreciation of what we've been doing and the challenges we've faced. If you're a potential project creator yourself and considering crowdfunding, maybe this will give you some information that will help you decide if this is the right fit for you. Or maybe I can call out some potential pitfalls so you don't make some mistakes that I did. If you're one of our Kickstarter backers, I really hope this helps explain some of the delays and missteps, and that you feel more confident after this that we're trying to do the best we can with the cards that we're dealt. If you're just interested in this subject as an observer, it's worthwhile to know a little bit about what the experience can be like for content creators, even if you back crowdfunding projects, don't back projects, or are considering backing projects in the future. Our experience is probably not the same as anyone else's, but I'm confident that there are parallels that many projects have to varying degrees. So with that lengthy preamble out of the way, here we go. Here's what it's been like for us during the 4 years following the formation of our company, and why the game's not out yet, but we aren't quitting until it's done. This conversation has to start with a pretty obvious, but perhaps deceptively simple question, which is why did we choose to do Kickstarter in the first place? That question requires a bit of background to answer, so I'll just start at the beginning. In 2012, I started a long-distance relationship with my future wife, Abby, who was living in the United Kingdom at the time. She came to visit me in the States in January of 2013, and because I'm a bit eccentric, I suggested that we take some of that time to participate in the Global Game Jam along with a few friends. If you're not familiar with what a game jam is, it's a competition set in a very narrow window of time, usually 48 hours, where developers build a game from scratch under certain rules and constraints. The Global Game Jam is one of the biggest examples of this concept and runs every year with increasingly large participation. There are a lot of reasons to do a game jam, and many of them include learning, meeting people, or trying out concepts. I've participated in numerous game jams since 2010, and have found more than once that it's given me a chance to experiment with a cool idea that I wanted to try out. It's nice to make a game within a narrow time frame because it forces you to test an idea quickly and see what you can make out of it. Game jams often have a theme that is used to narrow the focus, and what was selected for 2013 seemed like an interesting one. The theme was Heartbeat, so during the game jam I decided to experiment with an idea I had for a more impressionistic survival horror experience based on the juxtaposition between day and night, where the player was safe during the daylight hours but vulnerable to attack from deadly creatures after nightfall. We successfully submitted the game under the title Cimmerian Shade, only found out right after the fact that a similar name was actually already used by another title. Because we wanted to differentiate the game, we quickly changed the name to Stygian Shade, which I didn't realize at the time was nearly unpronounceable for people who read it, and virtually unspellable for people who heard it. The game didn't become Grave until a friend invited me on his podcast and informed me that I had to change the name if I wanted to receive any interest from the public. So thanks, Alon. I put the game up on IndieDB, which is a website that allows access to free games for the public. I planned on updating it a bit because it was an idea I was interested in, but other things in life started getting in the way of giving it my full attention. Abby and I got married, and I quickly found myself working full-time as a designer at a startup studio in Palo Alto named Redacted Studios, which was co-founded by David Robinson and a number of ex-Namco Bandai employees, who had worked on a number of titles including Afro Samurai. The job had a combination of on-site work and remote work from Arizona, so I would be able to work remote most of the time, and only fly periodically down to the Bay Area to work on-site for big pushes. This was my first official position at a company working as a designer, and I had to give it a majority of my attention, frequently working 50 to 70 hours, often including weekends. It was a really stressful but very satisfying experience.
Hello everybody, my name is Zama, and this is Stygian Shades. Or Stygian Shades, I don't know how to say it, but wow.
What I didn't realize was that people online were actually playing Stygian Shade. My friend Dan, who worked with me on my day job and had helped with the original prototype of Stygian Shade, informed me that the game was being played online, and even shared a video with me of someone playing the game. We were both pretty surprised that people were actually playing it and seemed to be responding to the tension and atmosphere. Because of that, I decided to dedicate some of my off time to building it up, and Dan offered his help on the programming side to get things into a more complete package. Things went on like that off and on for a while, and I made a few revisions to the game. In a lot of ways, I was experimenting with game design by working on a genre that I love and learning how to produce better level design, scares, objectives, and pacing. The fourth major iteration we made featured rudimentary support for the Oculus DK1 VR headset, and we were accepted for a month-long university art exhibition thanks to Teresa Devine at ASU. During this time, the game was massively improving and was finally getting to where it had a tone that was actually interesting. For Halloween in 2013, I tried to take some general advice from a couple of developer friends and reached out to share a new version of the game, now called Grave, that featured some limited combat and item interactions. The game was really sloppily put together, but I sent it to a bunch of people I had never really heard of who might play horror games in VR, since the game supported that as an option. I got it done at the last minute and basically forgot about it, because I didn't have any reason to think that there was much chance of it being played. It was just a fun project I was working on that was interesting to me. A bit after Halloween, I downloaded and started experimenting with the Marmoset Skyshop shader pack that was provided with Unity 4. I made a test scene using the new shaders and really liked the look of it, so I started exploring a few options for getting some feedback and built a Facebook page and Steam Greenlight concept page to see what would happen. If you don't remember how all this used to work, Steam until recently required that any games made from publishers without prior experience had to be accepted on Steam Greenlight in order to get onto the platform. As a way of testing interest, you could host a pre-Greenlight page called a Greenlight Concept, so you could see if there was any interest in your product before paying the entry fee and creating an official Greenlight pitch. The results of this were pretty interesting. Not only did the game have over 95% positive results on the Greenlight concept page, but we were also receiving strange comments on our Facebook page suggesting that many users thought they had seen this game before. A lot of time when you show or pitch a game to people, they will say, "I think I've seen that before," or something similar to that, and it's often not true. They're thinking of something else that was similar in some way, or they saw a game that was in the same genre and they just didn't remember what it was that they saw. They aren't actually thinking of your game. I assumed that this was the case and even responded to people saying that I thought they were mistaken. In this case, I was actually wrong. They had seen our game, and I didn't even realize how it happened until they told me.
How's it going, bro? My name's PewDiePie. How are you, by the way? That's alright, no one cares. I'm just kidding. Anyway, today we're gonna play some more Oculus, because we haven't done that shit enough already. But I found some really awesome games, and I'm excited to try them out. The first one is a horror game. It's called Grave. You scared? Good.
Apparently, one of the YouTube gamers I'd never heard of had actually played our game without even informing us that he was going to do so. I found out later that this is pretty much what happens whenever you send games to YouTubers or Twitch streamers, because they don't really have time to respond to the inquiries and usually just play a game if they're interested in it, rather than reaching out to you afterward or explaining that they were going to do so. PewDiePie played Grave as part of a collection of VR titles, and there was a really great moment at the end of the segment where he freaked out after a particularly drawn-out game of cat and mouse with a stranger, one of the game's main enemy types.
I think we're safe. I think we're all good now. I bet eagles aren't even real. What? What are you? Oh, stop, bloody!
If you don't know why this is a big deal, you'd be excused, as I didn't really know either at the time, as I was totally uninitiated in the YouTube world. However, PewDiePie is actually the most subscribed channel on YouTube, and this video actually had millions of views without me even realizing it existed. Even with the game looking incomplete and somewhat broken, this video earned us attention, and was getting us noticed by people who had no affiliation with us or our game initially. At this point, I was starting to feel like what we had built had some genuine reach. I didn't know exactly what we could do with it, but I started exploring what our options were. The deciding moment for us was when a friend recommended that we submit to a festival called The Mix, which focuses on little-known indie titles, and at the time was running out of the IGN offices during GDC, the Game Developers Conference. The event was considered pretty exclusive, and a quick look indicated that a huge number of press people attend, from a variety of outlets including the aforementioned IGN, but also GameSpot, Game Informer, Rock Paper Shotgun, Destructoid, Eurogamer, and a bunch of others. I decided to submit to the event because there wasn't really much of a downside, and if things went well, we'd have a pretty huge opportunity to show the game to press. I was still a pretty big novice at talking to press, so this seemed like a good way to explore that option. I was still working full-time as a game designer at Redacted Studios and had been promoted from junior to senior level in less than a year, so I really didn't have a lot of time to work on secondary projects. There was a lot of transition happening at work, however, and the project we were working on was starting to come to a close. I was starting to worry a little bit about how certain my long-term employment would be. I couldn't really take any action at that time, except wait and see how things panned out, both in terms of my day job and in terms of our submission to the Mix. Then something happened that I honestly wasn't expecting. Grave was actually accepted into the Mix at GDC. Suddenly, I had a little over a month to get the game to a functional state that was capable of public consumption, and I had to make a lot of choices about how I was actually going to do that. At this point, I'm going to break and address the part where we planned our Kickstarter in the next video. I know this is a lot of preamble, but I think the information is actually really useful to understand what the context was for how we decided to do what we did. Check in tomorrow for part 2, where I discuss the actual process of prepping for the Kickstarter campaign and all the decisions we had to make along the way, including our experience getting ready for and attending the Mix. This video series has taken a while to produce, and if you like what you see here so far, please consider throwing in some support on Patreon. You can also follow me on Twitter, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to receive notifications about new videos as they come out.